We're here in the City of London, outside Snow Hill Police Station, well, just up the road from it, because there's lots of police activity and obviously they're busy and we don't want to obviously get in their way. I'm here to talk about my experience of what happened to me in custody, how I was brutalised by Detective Sergeant John Ellis, and how it was subsequently managed and covered up by the IPCC. The actual officers in the station that investigated the very same matter, who know the officers, and everyone had an amnesia. I was brought into the station behind me, Snow Hill Police Station, where I was brought in and arrested. I'd been charged by the City of London Counter-Terrorism Directorate, who were on a major operation. It's been debated in Parliament at the moment. It's a £1 million operation called Operation Bohan. What I'm here to talk about is what they did to me while I was in custody. I'd never been in trouble before, I'd never been arrested. I was of the opinion that if you tell the truth and you say what you have to say and it's truthful, you know, you don't need solicitors, you don't need anyone to guide you, because obviously the truth will prevail, and obviously that takes precedent over anything else. I was charged with Section 2 non-violent harassment. What happened then was Detective Sergeant John Ellis said, "Could we have a word with you, please? There's some further questioning." I said, "No problem at all." They took me through the station, they took me to a room, and in that room, John Ellis went absolutely nuts. He said that they'd found photographs of myself, the forensics laboratory had found photographs of me taking cocaine, and he was asking me very robustly what that was about, whether I was involved in cocaine, whether I had a personal habit, whether I was involved in the import and exportation of cocaine, whether I sold cocaine, whether I was a recreational user, all very, very quickly, and he got more and more angry with my denials. All I just kept saying was, I have never seen cocaine, I've never seen cocaine, apart from on TV, so there are no photographs of me involved with cocaine, taking cocaine, near cocaine, because I've never seen it. So that's a complete nonsense. He got very, very angry and was effing and blinding, and got so angry at one point, he said, "I've had enough of this effing shit," and got up and walked out the room and sat on the bench. He then came back in. I demand to see these photographs. Obviously the photographs don't exist, in spite of being told that the forensics had found them when they analysed everything on my computers, when they raided my home and my office and my company accountants. If these photographs exist, I want to see them, and I'd like a lawyer. And I was declined a lawyer because he said it was just an informal interview. And I said, "An informal interview? You've just sworn at me. You've just sworn at me. That's not informal. That's not informal." The interview obviously wasn't recorded. The officers never made any notes. I wasn't ever cautioned. There is no record of this situation or this occurring at any point other than me telling you this now. Other than me making this up, perhaps. Some people might believe that. This does not exist. There is no records of this. What John Ellis then went on to do was to describe a picture of sorts. I explained to Detective Sergeant John Ellis that that picture was shown at a public place, at a wedding. I'm not even in the picture, and it was clearly there for fun to humiliate my friend Andrew, nothing else. But they had tried to bully me and threaten me into admitting that, one, I was in this picture, and two, I was involved in cocaine in some way. It's absolutely appalling. It's an appalling abuse of power. If they can do this to me, they can do this to anyone. I subsequently make a complaint to the IPCC. I get a phone call from Detective Sergeant Craig Mullish at the Professional Standards Directorate, who informs me that he's going to be carrying out the investigation. So I went down to see him. He's very pleasant, very, very nice man. So I explained everything that I've explained to you. I've got into far more detail using the foul language, the swear words, the threats that I received from John Ellis. And I brought a copy of my PowerPoint presentation. And I said that this PowerPoint preration shown in a public place at a wedding was used to threaten and abuse me and to scare me into admitting that I'm a drug criminal, which is just appalling. Get a phone call some weeks later saying that they're struggling with the investigation. None of the officers can remember what happened. Detective Sergeant John Ellis has got no recollection of the event. The other officer that was there, Colin Dawson, has got no recollection of the event. He said, "I'm still pursuing it. I'm still looking at other avenues, but just to let you know, I'm not getting anywhere with it." He said, interestingly, he said, Colin Dawson, the other officer that was there. Now, I spoke very fondly and very kindly of Colin Dawson at my meeting with Craig Mullish, because I liked him. You couldn't not like him, he's a nice guy. So he said, could you describe Colin Dawson? Because I want to make sure that we're talking about the same individual. And I said, well, you know we're talking about the same guy because you told me when I met you at our interview that, that you'd known him for some years. And he said, yeah, that's right, but I want to make sure that it's the same guy. So I described him, a short, stocky guy, Scottish, broad accent, lives in Essex, comes in very, very early every day, likes his overtime, I was told. And he said, yeah, okay. He said, we're talking about the same guy. He said, and what do you think Colin Dawson would say? So I said, well, he's ex-army. I would expect him to tell the truth. I'd expect him to be on his oath, which he swears before God and Queen to uphold the common law, which would involve telling the truth. And he said, well, he's got no recollection of it. So I said, well, let me come and interview Colin Dawson with you present. Let's get him on his oath. And we just want a yes or no. Did they take me through to that room? And he assured me that we didn't need to go down that route. And if there was any questions that needed to be answered, Detective Sergeant Craig Mullish was the man and he would get the answers. Immediately, I lost faith. It was absolutely apparent that that they were closing ranks. What happened next was he assured me that he would continue with his investigations. I got an anonymous tip-off telling me to, it might be in my advantage to make sure that that Detective Sergeant Craig Mullish checks the door locks. Because when they took me through the station, they were accessed by John Ellis at the times that I said they were. So I contact Craig Mullish and suggested that I'd done some research on the internet that he might want to look at the door locks to prove that the officers had taken me through to that interview room at the times I'd suggested, because the officers have got no recollection of this. And true to form, obviously the door locks came true and they proved that they'd taken me through to that interview room at that time. Subsequently, I get a letter from Detective Sergeant Mullish closing down the investigation. The officers recovered from their amnesia and gave a completely different account, even suggesting that I asked to go through because I had more information to provide to them. You couldn't make it up. In my recent trial, which I won and I was acquitted, which is fantastic. Unfortunately, the taxpayer had to pick up the police operation, which the cost of that, which is massive. The judge was very, very concerned about, obviously, police corruption, and she actually put the actual trial, my trial, on hold and actually asked for Detective Sergeant John Ellis to come to court, because obviously I'd said what I told you and I made it clear to the court what had happened, and she was very, very concerned about, obviously, the police officers misbehaving. So John Ellis duly turns up at court. Now, just think about this. In the first instance, he told the investigating officer, Craig Mullish, he had no recollection of ever interviewing me. Finally, when he was busted by the door locks, he remembered everything, but gave a completely different account and said that they had found the picture, which is what I'd always said. Here's a copy of my best friend's wedding, unfortunately, with my best man's speech on it. And then, obviously, in court, he changed his story for a third time and actually told the court that he had found drug-taking paraphernalia in my property. Fortunately, we had Michael Wolkind QC, who's as sharp as they come, Britain's best cross-examiner, and under cross-examination, John Ellis was asked, did you confiscate the goods? No. They confiscated my TomTom, just to put it in perspective, but they didn't take the so-called drugs that they found. Did he make a note of it in his notebook? No. Did he tell the officers around him that he'd found these drugs? No. Did he tell his commanding officer? No. Did he put it in his statement? No. And all my barrister kept saying to him, if I was a detective sergeant, I would have put it in my notes. I would have put it in my statement. I would have told my colleagues. I would have confiscated it. I would have even told my boss. John Ellis did none of that. He always has amnesia, and when it suits him, he tried a last-ditch attempt in court to discredit me by lying. This is an abuse of power for absolutely nothing other than police officers lying and misbehaving and then doing anything they have to do, irrespective of having to frame and do whatever they need to innocent people just to try and get themselves out of the muck. These officers swear an oath before God and the Queen to uphold the common law, and they have dishonoured their oath by their behaviour. Obviously, I'm very, very disappointed at the way I've been treated by these officers. It's not about those officers. Those officers are allowed to misbehave because of the environment and the culture that which they work in. My issue is with the system. police investigating the police, closing ranks, looking after their mates. The system doesn't work. The system's not right. We need to have a system that is fair, just and reasonable. Not a system that's going to cost the public stupid amounts of money, but a just, fair system. And the system that we have clearly isn't working. We, as the public, must have confidence in the police. It's vital.
Because one of the things that I do absolutely accept is that the police complaint system is not very effective.